You have to walk the talk. You have to be authentic as a leader. If you're not doing it, they see that.
It is entirely universal. There's other people who are going through this.
For me, a great leader needs to be able to marry three things: vision, systems, and people.
Welcome to Leadership Moments. If this is your first time, and if you are returning, thank you for your support.
This show is about leaders from all walks of life, leadership tips, and maybe even a little of what you wouldn't expect to help you in leadership.
We would appreciate it if you tell someone else about our podcast as we strive to support all leaders that want to just be better.
Let's get on with the show.
Today, our guest is Blair Bryant Nichols. Blair is the owner of BBN Creative Management for diverse and mission-driven talent. He is an expert in strategic speaking platforms and guides business leaders and speakers through the nuances of public and corporate speaking. Today, we will talk about how your speaking skills as a leader can influence and engage everyone around you. Let's jump in. Blair, I am excited for the topic that you're bringing to our listeners today, and so excited to have you as a guest. We are going to talk about speaking and what it means to leaders, the how and the why, and get into all the details. But before we get into those details, I'd love for you to dive into how did you get into speaking and how are you, why are you doing what you do with other individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. And my journey in this industry goes back to right out of college. I just thought I was headed for the publishing industry. The publishing industry, even as an avid reader, wasn't something I knew existed until I was in college. And I certainly didn't know that the speaking industry existed to a great extent. So I landed my first job at HarperCollins Publishers, but in their Speakers Bureau department. So it was relatively new. It was the first publisher to have a Speakers Bureau in-house at the time, as other publishers, kind of followed suit. But that's where I began. And it was this interesting hybrid of publicity and being an agent and being close to authors. And so I got my first, round of experience there. And I was in New York in the publishing world for 5.5 years. And then 12 years ago, I moved out to LA to work with the speaker, author, thought leader, Keith Ferrazzi, and got my MBA at UCLA, went back to another agency. So over the last 18 years, I've been on different sides of the industry, from in-house with different thought leaders and helping them leverage speaking strategically. I've been at the major bureaus and agencies that do a lot of the brokering between organizations for a lot of the paid speaking. And I've also helped build an agency that's more for owners, entrepreneurs, people who just want to get out in front of their ideal audience. They're not necessarily looking to be paid keynote fees. They're just really looking to leverage speaking strategically, which is what I love about it, is that I think that there's a lot more opportunity in what you do with speaking, especially as a leader, entrepreneur, business owner, et cetera, than just thinking about keynote fees or how you get paid or selling books, which is where it all began for me. But a lot of things have evolved and changed in the last 18 years. So it's been an interesting journey, but I've kind of kept coming back to this world. And now, with my own management firm, now I get to, work with all different types of speakers and authors and entrepreneurs and business owners in all different ways. And that was just been my entrepreneurial intention for the last decade or so to get to this point.
I love that. And thank you for sharing. And I think what's really important is, as you know, most of our listeners are leaders that are, currently executive professionals, some entrepreneurs as well. And they might be saying, but I don't want to speak, right? It's not what I want to do. And what I would say is, as a leader, you're always speaking. And even as a leader, it is important to get out there. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a paid event. Sometimes it's at a conference for a vendor that you just installed a product for or whatever. But getting out there as a leader and showing people, hey, this is what we're doing at our company, entices other people that may want to come there and work for you. So there's so many reasons. And then I also think that there's reasons for helping, leaders with their teams and engaging their peers and stuff like that. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that first, of why is this important for leaders, even if they don't want to sell a business or sell a book or get paid? Why should they consider, leveling up their speaking skills?
Definitely. And I love this question. So it's always about their time, right? When I'm working with a leader, thought leader, whatever they are, a lot of them are solopreneurs or they're running their businesses, or even if they're part of a larger organization, time is their most precious resource. So when it comes down to how are you spending your time out there to help grow your business, promote your business, do whatever the things that you are most important to your business, which is what a lot of I know owners, entrepreneurs are spending their time doing, getting new clients, building their brand, getting out there and building their business in general. Think about it from both how you're spending your time and resources and how effective those things are. Given the nature of your business, if you're really selling your services or your time in what you're doing, whether it's coaching or professional services or consulting or something else like that, you're trying to get clients over this sales hub. And if you're trying to use digital ads and are throwing a bunch of money into, digital advertising and trying to move people through an email funnel, you know how much that costs and what that looks like and how much it costs to get a new client. So you can look at those numbers if that's a strategy you've already pursued. Now look at how much time it's spent and et cetera, all the other conversion things. Now look at how you've done with events, and you might do booths. You might just show up at events and just try to network and meet people and go around and exchange business cards still and try to get new clients just by that way. But how much more effective would it be if you were up on stage as an expert where you get to now tell a story to emotionally connect with this audience and then share valuable information, expertise, something that's going to help make their lives and businesses better. And then wrap it up with another story where you connect with them so they remember you. You connect the dots from the beginning to the end. And then how powerful is it going to be for you to then have a booth for them to come talk to you and for them to be able to, even from stage, be able to convert 80 to 90% of that audience into people now subscribe to your email list at the very least. So there's so much more power in leveraging your time where you might just be showing up as a vendor, exhibitor, sponsor, etc., and turning that sponsorship or just that participation or that budget resource of even your time into something much greater. And if you're trying to get people to move along this know, like, and trust curve to getting to work with you, you can do that a lot faster and more effectively through speaking, because we're able to do that in person with people that you're not able to do with a digital ad. It still requires additional steps. It's still going to require other things. So I'm not saying that you need to get rid of all your other strategies, but if you are bootstrapping it, if you are really trying to figure out what it is you can do, showing up at events or pursuing events where just you can speak for free, you can, even do some sort of modest sponsorship just to get in front of your ideal clients. It's such a worthy investment. And think about it, not just where you're going in the sense of your own industry, getting out there and networking with people that already know your topic, already know what you offer. You want to go where you're needed. One of my colleagues always said, if you're a yoga instructor, don't go to the yoga conference, go to the stressed out people's conference. So I always love that. It's just like a pretty clear kind of, go stand out. Whatever you offer, go be that solution for this ideal client at where they are at, rather than just assuming that people are going to pick you out of the dozen other digital marketing solutions that might be available at the digital marketing conference. So a lot of different ways that I love to figure out the right strategy, but I think simply it's always going to serve you well. You don't need to be up on stages all the time, but yeah, if you are a leader, owner, entrepreneur, you're constantly meeting people. How valuable is it to just have a really succinct kind of way to describe what you do and who you are? How valuable is it to do that when you're pitching investors or doing other areas of work that aren't as creative as maybe a keynote experience is or something like what I'm describing? But to your point, it definitely carries over into all other areas of your life. And it's something that I think just as a skill is never going to be something that you're not going to need. I think we all learned during COVID that even just doing this, looking straight into a camera is like new and uncomfortable experience for a lot of people because it feels like standing up in front of the room. And It might be a little less scary now, but that's the point, So we've gotten better at it. You're going to always be doing this in some way, shape, or form. So can't hurt to get more experience doing it wherever that might be.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely want to get into the scary part in just a minute, because I think that's going to be a key piece. But what I like about what you said was, look, you got to do it these ways. But if I'm a leader in an organization and maybe I don't own my company, but I'm a senior leader, me getting out there and showing what the company does, there are so many people I know that are in transition right now for jobs. And what do? They go to these conferences and they listen to what other people are doing. So now you can attract that talent as well. And the best companies hire when they find the right people, not when they actually have the job openings. And so you're attracting all this talent all the time. So when you do have that opening, or when you know that something might be coming up and doing that succession planning, now you have all this availability by being this leader that is out there doing these speeches, talking to people like you're talking about. I love those examples that you have. Now, let's talk about, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of my clients talks about storytelling, and for a long time, it was very much like a sales, a marketing, thing. But now a lot of what he's doing is working with their HR teams. And how do we tell our story as a company, as our culture, our values? How do we better recruit by telling, better stories than just here are the benefits and everything else? Just like in sales, people don't want just the numbers in the data, for certain types of sales. People need, they're going to get hooked more emotionally from the story that you tell. So anyway, as an aside, yes, I love that.
Yeah. No, great example. Thank you for sharing that. And, if I'm a leader, I am not only speaking on a national level or a global level, but I'm speaking all the time to my team to engage them, to my peers to try to get them to come along and engage with me and collaborate with me, and even to my own leadership. Now, I deal with a lot of leaders that are, I'm going to say, on the engineering technical side, and they tend to be more introverted. It's just a natural thing. There's no harm, no foul there. We need introverts and extroverts in our life. But because they're introverted, the word scary that you said earlier is definitely real for them, and them getting out speaking. So I'd love for you to just touch on, like, if someone is nervous about this, what are some of the tools or tips that you would give them to give them that nudge to go ahead and try it?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. Like, I think first is really aligning with your mission. So most of the speakers I know, especially the ones who've been most successful, in my opinion, are the ones who have an avocation. They're there because they want to share their message, their knowledge. They're not just trying to collect a paycheck. Like, they really love being able to make an impact, or what they're doing like what speaking is doing in service of their nonprofit, their company, their business. Like, they are very passionate. So whether it's the mission of your business or just your own values or what message you want to share from a stage, I think finding that inner purpose will make the scary a little less scary, because you're driven by something more powerful than that. And the second thing is like the two sides of imposter syndrome. So we always talk about imposter syndrome is everyone's going to find out that I'm a fraud. So maybe there's some fear you're going to get up there and everyone's going to say, oh, sure. Yeah, we know this. But the other side of that, and the truth really is, like, a lot more, about your topic than what other people know. But like I said earlier, when you constantly go to the conferences where everyone's the same and it's your colleagues and your peers and we're all in the same industry and we all speak the same language and we all know the same things and we're reading the same journals and websites, etc. But when you're actually thinking about the audience you want to address, when you're actually thinking about who you want to serve and where you want to make an impact, you are giving the gift of the knowledge that you have that they do not. So you have to think about it both in the sense of, not everyone knows all these things. This is, and that helps you in shaping how you present it too. But also then when people literally are afraid, when I've worked with speakers who are making quite a bit of money to go walk out on that stage, I also remind them like that they're there to give a gift. They're not it's not the Olympics. They're not going out to be critiqued. It's not a performance in that sense where people, but that I think helps ground them too then in what their purpose is there. So they're kind of similar on a couple sides. One's the more intellectual mindset of it, and one's the more like emotional mindset of it.
I really love that. I love the two-sided for the imposter syndrome of like, what are you able to give? We never give ourselves enough credit with our own experience and knowledge. And the fact that you said a few minutes ago, look, you don't go to where people already know your stuff. You go to people that need you. And if you go to people that need you, then what you have to offer is going to be very significant for them and hopefully bring a lot of impact. So I love that thought. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah.
Let's talk about the how. So I believe that as a leader in any speech or speaking, whether it's to one person or to thousands of people, the storytelling is so important to get people engaged. And I'm sure that's part of your methodology, but can you talk a little bit about, how can I be a great speaker? What are the things that I should focus on?
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it in the sense of storytelling is a big component. My area of expertise is like kind of the broad view, sustainable speaking strategy. And one component of it is just the topics in the story, where there are people who are, experts on storytelling and on technique and all of that. I can definitely give guidance and notes, but structuring the stories themselves, this is what I think you're really offering to the world. So I really leave a lot of creative freedom to my clients that this is the one thing that they need to deliver on. And there's a lot of other pieces I can help them kind of create and shape in all of this. But I really want it to be as much of their own as possible. And then just to give them, some little tweaks here and there. But what I would say is that just even collecting your stories is something that I think is new for a lot of people and is something that doesn't happen just easily if you just sit down and you're going to think, I'm going to think of every good story that I've got. No, it's going to happen spontaneously. It's going to happen kind of like when you wake up and you want to record a dream, but try to get in the habit of when you think of a good anecdote or a good story, or maybe when you are doing some brainstorming around various topics, like what are some examples when I demonstrated resilience, or when I overcame something, or when I really, failed at something, or all these things that I can share that make me vulnerable. I think it's the authenticity and the vulnerability that people connect with. I think humor is great too, but there can be a fine line, depending on where your humor is, but when it's about yourself and when it's your own vulnerability, I think that's a great way to connect with an audience. Whereas when we think about speakers and leaders, we often think of, putting them up there on that stage. They're the experts. They've done the big thing, or they've achieved the thing that makes them, the reason why they're there in the first place. And you need to bring yourself to the level of that audience. So in the sense of like both in how you share your content and understanding, they might not know the basics, like the basics and the advanced version of this, but you also as a human need to first connect with them. And I hear a lot throughout my career of the leaders that had these transformational meetings or moments when they open the kimono, so to speak. And if that's just about that vulnerability, it's not about going up there and saying like, well, like it's not our fault. The market sucks and the economy did that and we got hit with these tariffs. It's the leaders who take responsibility and admit where things, didn't go as predicted or as they would have liked and what they're going to do next and everything else. So it's the story you're telling both about yourself and how you're bringing people into the future with that. And so I think it is about, are you able to connect the dots? Because at the end of the day, people are really going to remember the beginning and the end more than anything else. And like the Olympics, if you can really nail that landing at the end, like that's where that standing ovation comes. And a lot of this is emotional driven. When we're talking about 45 minutes, like how often do you get someone's undivided attention for 30, 45 minutes nowadays? And hopefully it's undivided, it'll be showing how good you're doing if people are paying attention, but how can you really leverage that time to plant that one big idea, that one new thing, or give them those 3 steps or whatever it may be. And now what's going to also hook them to want to keep, learning from you, to, want to get your free resources, and to maybe then, even if you're in a corporate context, maybe you've got consumer resources. Like I'm helping all my clients, like what's your B2B and your B2C strategy? Every audience is potentially, they might not hire you as, a high level speaker, coach, consultant, but they might buy your course or come to your workshop or buy your books or these other things that can be volume and passive revenue for you. So yeah, and I mean, figuring out kind of just both the front end and what you really want as an outcome from any meeting interaction you're having with your team or whatever that audience is. And also just thinking about kind of the bigger strategy that you should always be thinking as a leader, your time and your resource, and what is going to advance from every talk and opportunity like that too.
Yeah, so many good nuggets in there. And, I deal with my coaching clients. A lot of them have a hard time with expressing vulnerability and at what level. And I love how you say, look, open the kimono, be vulnerable, but have the story with it. Like, what's the why behind it? What's their passion around it? And I think those are really key pieces that I work with on my clients too, to help them remember, like, you don't have to share everything, but you need to share enough to be able to connect and have people feel that emotion to want to connect with you. So I really love those pieces that you add. I also like the beginning and the end, and not always remembering the middle. I don't know about you, but I know that when I watch videos, and maybe even people that listen to this podcast, I always do at least 1.5 times most of the time. We don't get a lot of attention for people for very long. So true.
And oftentimes, even if you're doing 1.5 times, you might like kind of zone out a little bit in the middle and be like, oh, it's wrapping up. I better figure out what this is about. And and you're able to move on.
Yes, which brings to doing that good ending in the summary and everything. So true. I love that. Okay, so if I'm a leader and I say, wow, this is great. Like, okay, I want to do this. I want to get started to be able to represent my company, represent what I'm doing, who I am, build my brand. How do I get started?
Well, I think you're in especially good shape if you are within a company, because hopefully you can start doing things internally. Maybe you're already doing a lot of speaking internally, but there's always more you can volunteer for. I know people, they weren't in the HR space. They weren't in like a personal like learning and development or training area, but they were developing this story workshop. And so they started delivering it as just like, hey, I want to volunteer to deliver this workshop, and started doing it within their big tech company, and then now turned it into a business outside of that, where now that's their full-time job is, coaching and doing workshops and having a full-time business, helping other people with storytelling, and like that sort of thing has been, very popular in a communication standpoint. So I think there's definitely opportunities where you can even pilot things that you might want to try outside of the business, but also just getting speaking experience in general should also raise your profile within the organization. So first is the internal opportunities, exploring all of those, speaking to different sectors, industries, et cetera, and volunteering for things that might necessarily fall under your role and under your purview. You might be in the marketing department, but want to talk about one of these things. I think there's probably a lot of appetite for that, especially these poor HR departments that aren't given much money and are trying to bring in speakers or trying to bring in other people. If they can bring in internal resources, I think they'd be excited about that, and things you can do with your own team. You don't necessarily need to be getting other departments involved if you don't want to. So things to explore there. And then on the external side, talking to your PR teams, your marketing teams, and seeing, if you are already doing things with conferences, are they already placing executives or people on panels or getting them speaking opportunities? Or is that something they could explore? Are they already doing booths and exhibiting, and do you have a conference strategy already? So it really kind of depends on where you're at, what's already happening, what you can leverage from that. And then maybe you can go and be part of that. They might not have known you wanted to do that, it might be great to now include you and have your perspective in those types of opportunities. So exploring those, and then, that's where now you might want to start doing more on your own at similar industry events where you're out there under your own name. Maybe you're going to start writing, a blog, and now establishing your own newsletter. And, there's a lot of ways you can step away from being on the corporate side, but I think you start usually where you're most known in your industry and your area of expertise. And if you move out on your own as an entrepreneur, as a whatever business owner, then I would still network within my industry, but that's when you start thinking about, where do I now go for my own customer base? Now, where am I going, and to find, the business that I'm building.
Great advice. Great advice. Start where you're comfortable, what's easy to you, and then expand from there. I completely love it. All right. There's that sound. It's time for our fun questions. Are you ready for our fun questions?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Would you rather always have to sing your responses or have to dance when communicating?
Probably sing my responses. I think I just get tired. I'd get more tired from the dancing, communicating.
All right. And what genre would you sing if you were going to sing everything?
Just badly. No, it doesn't matter. Any genre, like bad karaoke version, because that's my key. Like.
Great. All right. Would you rather have the ability to cook like a world-class chef or have a personal chef who makes all your meals for you?
Oh gosh, yes, definitely the personal chef. It's like on my vision board. I love cooking. I actually am like more the chef in the family and all that. And a lot of the guys in my family have been the chefs more, so to speak. So I wouldn't call myself a world-class chef by any means, but I think I'm pretty competent. So it would just be nice, though, eventually to just have someone that took off, and from a nutritional standpoint, because like, let's be honest, like if someone else is cooking, I'm more likely to eat a healthy meal than I am if I'm always making those choices.
Yeah, totally agree. And my husband is the chef in the family too. That's why I tell him I married him, because he likes to cook and I like to eat. So it works out great. So yes, I totally can relate.
Yes, my husband is very generous in largely eating whatever I cook, and will give me the honest feedback though on things.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's great. That's a great relationship, right? Because then you know what to make the next time or not. So it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah. I like to experiment, and experiments are experiments for a reason.
Yes, that's right. That's right. All right, last question. Do you want to live in a house with an incredible view or a house with the most comfortable interior?
I think the incredible view. I mean, I think you could be in a bunker and have an incredible interior, and it would just be like still a bunker. So I think, if you have the view, like the inside, you can make really comfortable. I don't know, over rationalizing it, but the view is. I have a mountain house, so obviously I'm like, definitely the view. Like, you don't even need a yard. You don't need anything. Just like something to look at. Like that's all you need.
Yeah, to give you awe every day, which is so good for health and wellness. So it's wonderful. Well, Blair, thank you so much. You gave some great advice to our listeners. I know that they can leverage it with helping them in starting speaking or increasing and making their speaking better. And you can always reach out to Blair too if you want to learn how to do this even more. So really appreciate all your insights today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and bbncreativemanagement.com. And you can sign up for a free 30-minute call if you've got questions and want to explore what your next step in this world might be.
Wonderful. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed the show, please go to leadershipmomentspodcast.com to subscribe to the podcast or on your favorite player, as well as follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
You can also send us a message on what you like and don't like, or what guest you want us to have on the show.
So until next time.
This is Stacey Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
And I'm Tracy Ann Palmer. Be the change you wish to see in the world.